You might say, well, I want to do a comparative report for 1 month, for example. So we might take the last month, December, comparing it then to the prior month, November. So how would you do that? We'd go to the last month, 12/01/25 to 12/31, run it, and then the previous period is going to be, this is the prior year. So if I select the dropdown, notice what it's taking here is the prior year at December, which is another way that we could compare it, right? I could say, let me see the December from this year to December of last year and see how I did at this time of year. That would be useful, of course, if we have a seasonal business in particular, where it's not as easy for me to compare December to November. It makes more sense for me to compare this December possibly to last December. But I could compare it to November by now going back up top and say I want to compare it to the previous period. Custom period is now the 11/1 to 11/30, noting that when I compare month to month, it's going to be a little bit more messy because some months have 31 days versus 28 days versus 30 days and so on. But I can still check off the dollar and percent change and then run it to refresh it. So now I've got the current period, December 31st, and the prior period, November 30th, and then the dollar change. In this case, there aren't any because all of the data was entered on 1 month, but that's the idea. And then you've got the percent change. What if I did this for November, 11/01/25 to 11/30/25? I think we have data. Now all of the data is in one period again. Well, most of the data is in 2024. What if I made this 2024 and 24? So we get some difference here, for crying out loud. There we have November versus October, and then we have the change and so on and so forth. Now, the other common period you would have is a quarter. So let's take the last quarter, which would be October, November, and December. So 10, let's say 10/31 or 10/01/25 to 12/31/25, let's say, and then we can compare the previous period, which is going to be 7/7/8/9, right? And so we have 7/1 to 7/9/25, and we'll say, okay, is there a comparative data in that? There's not really any comparative data in that in 2025, but you get the idea on a quarterly basis, and we could compare then to the prior quarter. So instead of doing it here, I might say I want to compare the same period to the prior year and run it that way. So let's run that. So now we're comparing, well, basically the last quarter is going to be as of the end of the year, 2025, to the end of the year of the prior year. Now, if we were on the income statement, which is a performance report, it would make a difference where the beginning date was on the performance reports. We'll do that more in future presentations. But just to get an idea of it, that means that there's a whole lot of combinations that you can get in play, especially with the performance reports when we start to do these comparisons. Just to list out a few of them, you could have a month-by-month report side by side with more than one period, right? You could have a quarter-by-quarter report in the current period. You could have all 4 quarters versus the last couple quarters. You could have a year-by-year comparison. And then you could have a 2-period comparison of all kinds of 2-period comparisons. This month compared to last month. This month of December compared to last December instead of the November. You can have this quarter compared to the prior quarter. You can have this quarter compared to the prior year of the same quarter. Quarter number 4 compared to the quarter number 4, and so on and so forth. So you can get quite overwhelmed in the number of reports that you can put together just with these comparisons. And what you want to do is try to think of what's your systematic grouping of reports you're going to batch together as you periodically give them to, say, your client, which is what I typically am framing the presentations from. We want to give them a package of our data. What are we going to give them on a package report that's going to be reported on a monthly basis versus a quarterly basis versus quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. Quarter 4, usually being more detailed because you need more information for year-end stuff, such as tax preparation and end-of-the-year financial statement, external reporting, and so on and so forth. We'll talk more about that in future presentations, but once you have the reports that you like, you might customize the reports or save customizations. And maybe this is a balance sheet for external reporting, let's say. You might add a group and say this is going to be for quarter or year-end, let's just say year-end reports or something. And then we'll add that to the group and save it so that when we make our reports at the end of the year, I can go to the first tab, refresh it. Let's refresh this thing. And then I'll go into the custom reports. And so now we have under the category of year-end reports, we've got our report here that's already formatted for us. And so then I can organize those. We might even come up with a numbering convention, which we might talk about in future presentations for that.